Here's a mind-blowing statistic. The average person will spend 90,000 hours at work over their lifetime. That's about a third of our lives spent working. But what are those hours actually doing to our mental and physical health?
That number is actually terrifying when you think about it. And what's even more concerning is how many of those hours are spent in ways that actively harm our well being.
You know, I was looking at some recent research that showed nearly 76% of workers reported experiencing burnout in the past year. We're talking about physical exhaustion, mental fatigue, and emotional drainage.
Those numbers are staggering. What do you think is driving this epidemic of workplace stress?
Well, here's something fascinating. Studies show it's not just about workload. A major factor is what researchers call always-on culture. People are receiving work notifications an average of 46 times per day outside of regular hours.
Mm hmm. And those notifications trigger actual physiological stress responses, right? Even if we don't act on them?
Exactly right. And here's where it gets really interesting. Each work-related notification triggers a cortisol spike that can last up to 20 minutes. So even if you're not working, your body is still in work mode.
That reminds me of a study I read about how it takes 23 minutes to fully regain focus after an interruption. We're basically in a constant state of partial attention.
And speaking of attention, get this. The average office worker only gets about 11 minutes between interruptions. We're literally training our brains to expect disruption.
Oh, wow. So, what are some companies doing to address this? I've heard about some pretty innovative approaches.
Well, there's this tech company in Denmark that actually installed software that blocks all work-related communications after 6 p.m. Their employee satisfaction scores increased by 34% in just 3 months.
That's such a dramatic improvement. Though I imagine some businesses might worry about losing productivity.
Here's the twist. Productivity actually increased by 22%. Turns out, well-rested employees who aren't constantly stressed do better work. Who knew, right?
You know what's interesting about that? It reminds me of how some Japanese companies are now requiring employees to leave by 7 p.m., literally turning off the lights to force the issue.
And let's talk about the physical side of things, because this is where it gets really concerning. Studies show that prolonged sitting increases our risk of heart disease by up to 147%.
That's absolutely shocking. And it's not just about sitting, right? There are all these compounding factors.
Right? Poor lighting alone can reduce our melatonin production by 40%, affecting sleep patterns and overall health. And then there's the issue of indoor air quality. The average office has CO2 levels that can reduce cognitive function by up to 50%.
Hmm. So, what are some practical solutions you've seen work well?
One company I studied implemented what they call the 52-17 rule. 52 minutes of focused work followed by 17 minutes of complete break. Their employees reported a 32% increase in productivity and a 68% decrease in physical complaints.
That's fascinating. It's like the workplace version of interval training.
Exactly. And here's another interesting finding. Offices that incorporate plants and natural light see a 15% increase in creativity and a 6% increase in productivity. Our bodies are literally designed to respond to nature.
That makes so much sense when you think about our evolutionary history. We weren't meant to sit under fluorescent lights staring at screens all day.
Speaking of screens, blue light exposure from computers can reduce melatonin production by twice as much as natural light. That's why some companies are now installing circadian lighting systems that change throughout the day.
Well, that's really innovative. What other technological solutions are you seeing?
There's this fascinating trend of using AI to monitor workplace stress levels through typing patterns and voice analysis. Some companies report being able to predict burnout 2 weeks before employees even realize they're struggling.
Though that raises some interesting privacy concerns, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And that's why the most successful programs make this kind of monitoring completely optional and employee-controlled. The key is empowering people to manage their own well-being, not policing it.
That's such an important distinction. It's about creating tools for self awareness, not surveillance.
Looking ahead, I think we're going to see a complete reimagining of what workplace well-being means. It's not just about having a gym membership or free snacks. It's about fundamentally changing how we think about work and health.
That's really the heart of it, isn't it? We need to stop seeing well being as a perk and start seeing it as a fundamental right.
And the data backs this up. Companies that invest in comprehensive well-being programs see an average return of $3.27 for every dollar spent. It's not just good for people, it's good for business.
That's the perfect note to end on. When well being and business success align, real change becomes possible.
And maybe that's the key to transforming those 90,000 hours from something we survive into something that actually helps us thrive.